That was our biggest differentiator at Alpha Inbound. The reason we could scale from 0 to 140k a month in 18 or so months was because I built the 90% of people don't ever engage and only 1% of people post. So if you post, you are literally the 1%, and 90%, which by the way is going to be most of your prospects, will never ever engage on your content. Basically, what you then need to figure out once you have that ideal customer profile mapped out is what is their want, not what their need is.
Agencies need to realize that it's not something complementary to your marketing mix. It's an essential. Like if you don't do this, nothing else is going to happen.
Okay. Literally doing that, within 3 weeks, we booked more sales calls than he had in the last 1.5 years. It was so hard. I had sleepless nights for months on end, and it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. The problem, especially of agency owners, is that in this world today, even though we've got these incredible opportunities with the internet and building businesses online, so many people are sat at home lonely. And I know that because I was that person. One of the reasons that drives me is I'm massively insecure, if I'm being totally honest. And let the fear of death drive you forward to the other side.
Today, we've got Nigel Thomas, who's an entrepreneur, ex-seven-figure e-com marketing agency CEO and the creator of the David to Goliath newsletter. Nigel, having scaled 2 marketing agencies to 7 figures and grown a LinkedIn following to almost 16,000 followers. Now Nigel helps agency businesses grow revenue through strategy, positioning, and mindset work. Nigel, welcome.
Wow, that was a big introduction. Yeah. Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure to be here, Romans. You know what? I just want to say for obviously yourself and Christina, there's a lot of sharks in this space, in the agency space. And I had just had a feeling like I spoke to you when we first met. And the fact that, we lived in Manchester together and we met up, had a really good feeling. And you guys are a diamond in the rough, I would say. You really care about helping people, and I think we need more of those people. So I just want to say, firstly, I think you should be really proud of what you've done. I'm really proud of who you are, yourself and Christina, and it's an absolute honor to be on a podcast with you and to get to know you. And I'm sure we'll do a lot of business and help each other out over the years. But I just want to say, thank you, for being who you are.
Thank you so much. Very kind of you to say so. And I'm sure likewise, we'll explore more opportunities, and there's more to come to what we've just started.
We've got some exciting things in the pipeline.
Absolutely. Look, today I wanted to, we obviously already spoke about this before the podcast, to dive into your overall approach to growth. Our audience are agency owners just like yours. And I think the overall idea is to show what good or what great looks like to agency founders and to agency leaders. And not just from, I guess, operational point of view, but from the leadership point of view, from a mindset perspective, from growth perspective. And from quite a few guests that I've had a chance to interview, you've got a pretty unique story with quite a few roadblocks and and challenges. Yeah. And I think the way you, generally speaking, approach growth is different. You're not afraid of taking on bigger challenges, and I think that that's something that would be interesting and inspiring to the audience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that one of the reasons that drives me is I'm massively insecure. If I'm being totally honest. It started obviously when I was at school, being bullied a lot for my skin. I got the nickname Krusty the Clown at school because my eczema was so bad, and I was always ostracized. But I want to tell people, there's a lot of people kind of shouting out into the void, virtue signaling, trying to get attention because, they want likes or whatever it might be. But I want to say, look, I'm insecure, I struggle with things, but here's my plan. Here's my action, and I'm taking responsibility for my life. And I want to be that figure for people because I needed that person when I was younger, and I never found that person. So, I've met some incredible people along the way, but that's the message I want to give to people. And it's incredible what's possible when you really put your mind to it. I think with the agency landscape, I mean, it's a strange place because, as you guys know, the barrier to entry is really low. All you need now is a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection. That's pretty much it. So that's a good thing because it means that it's a very open marketplace and there's a lot of room for innovation. But on the downside, what it means, and I know because I went through this journey and I've, worked with 35 agency owners one-to-one the last 12 months, that people come in, they don't necessarily have that experience, especially on a business sense. So, they're signing clients, they're jumping on sales calls, they're trying to hire team members, look at their finances. Obviously, you guys know all about that, the operational side. And they haven't done any of these things before. They might have gone to university. They might have just come fresh out of school. But there's a lot of young agency founders that just don't necessarily have the experience. And the only way they can learn is on the job. They just have to get up to speed really fast. And I think some of these courses and stuff that are out there, they talk about like cold email strategies and stuff like that, but there's an underlying thing and it's all in there. It's all in there between the ears. And when you sort that thing out, your mindset, you can do any of these things, especially, and you can have tremendous growth within a short period of time.
First of all, I agree with everything that you said. What's very interesting that you started talking about mindset straight away. I think it reflects your values and reflects what you've also gone through yourself. If we go all the way back to the point when you decided to get into the agency space yourself, why did you decide? Did you just kind of fall into the space, into the business yourself? What was the transition period between? I believe back in the day you were in corporate, right? And then you made a decision to get into business. What can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I was in a big construction consultancy called AECOM, and I was a quantity surveyor. For those people who don't know what that is, it's basically someone who tells their clients, they count the bricks and tell them how much money they've lost. So it's not the friendliest of places. And the construction industry, if anyone knows, it's very high pressure and it's not that inefficient. When I was there, like not even one project got delivered on time in 3 years of working there. So I was 27 years old. I really hate my job. I was doing it for the money. I mean, I'll be honest, what my master plan was to be a chartered quantity surveyor, a pretty good salary, go out to Dubai, get a massive tax-free salary of like 200K and come back and build a property portfolio. But that's when I realized about myself, I can't just do things that I don't enjoy. I have to do something that I believe in. And that's when I was there and I was seeing like the managers, the directors who were a few years ahead of me, and they were miserable. They were bitter. And I didn't want to be one of those people. So that's when I started searching. I didn't really come across a mentor or anything like that. It was just literally searching online, going into Facebook groups, looking at YouTube videos, reading books, all the ones that people talk about. And basically, I got some clients on Upwork. So when I was in work in the morning, I used to do some client work. And then at lunch, I used to go into the toilet. Like literally no word of a lie. And I used to on my laptop or my phone, try and sign clients, help them out. And by the way, I was working for $5 an hour for some of these jobs. So I was hardly getting paid anything, but I built up a little resume on Upwork and I signed a few clients. And I quite quickly realized when I was connecting with other people, I have got to actually go to the brand instead of going through Upwork because I can't charge high enough prices. So then what I did is I started cold emailing people and I somehow managed to get on a call with this huge sportswear brand in the US. I have no idea how I managed it. And I got onto the call and I managed to blag my way through it and somehow convince the owner, bearing in mind at the time, I'd only been working with very small companies. They were spending $70,000 on Facebook advertising. And I managed to convince the owner that we were going to come in and change and optimize everything. So I got the deal across the line. It was like $7,000 a month. And this was when I was quitting my corporate job. That was enough for me to go, I'm going all in. And what I did is I then actually hired someone out in the US as a contractor and, gave him a big chunk of the revenue, who had a lot of experience running Facebook advertising. And then we deliver, to make sure we'd actually deliver a good service. And funnily enough, that guy actually came to be my business partner, is Josh, Alpha Inbound, who then I became the CEO of a few years later. So that was kind of my entrance into it. It was really just searching for something else, just really intuition, I felt there was something wrong. And I saw marketing agencies was a good way without needing the cash flow, the experience. Like I said, there's low barrier to entry. So that was a way of kind of getting into that industry and signing up some clients and, really trying to build freedom. That's what I was going for. But one thing I would say is when I got into it, I remember creating this vision board and I had this car, which was I think it was a Jaguar F-Type that I used to look at. And I was listening to all these people like, think about your car, like sit down, meditate, visualize and all this stuff. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a millionaire by the time I was 30. I didn't make it, if I'm being honest. But what I've realized is now I don't care about material things. I want to take care of, people I care about, people I love, my friends and family. But I don't care about material things at all. I just care about people and experiences and memories.
What did you learn from this, to be honest? Because your values have shifted from focusing on materialistic things to more so, I guess, more subjective values like family, friendships and relationships. What specifically changed here?
I just look back at my life, and when I don't know, let's say I rented out a car or bought something expensive, like I just didn't really care about it. But then I look back at memories, experiences, when I would go on holiday with my family or go on holiday with my friends or achieve something incredible together with a team in business, like a feat, which was extraordinary. And these were the memories and things that I look back on and go, yeah, I'm really proud of that. Like that gave me a lot of joy. So it was really just a timeline of events and really the experience and just looking back and reflecting. And I think that's something that's important for people, that everyone gets caught up in social media. And yeah, you've got to take advice from people. But I think one of the main things, if you look at someone like Ray Dalio, I don't know if you've read his book all about first principle thinking, that you should have your own principles in life. And it should be internal. You should sit down maybe for a few days, reflect, write some notes. What do you care about? Like, what do you want to do in the world? Not what someone else wants to do. And then through your experiences, look back and reflect and create your own values. And that's what I found most purposeful in life. And that's when things started to align a little bit more.
And do you see others, or obviously agency owners and entrepreneurs they're working with, kind of falling into the same trap? Obviously, there is a social media disease overall when people fall into trap. I was guilty of that myself, at some point or another, and kind of chasing the status and trying to play finite games. How do you see, or what do you observe when it comes to working with your clients, and just helping other agency owners?
Yeah. So the thing is, especially for marketing agency owners, I have this theory that the marketing agency owners are incredible at marketing, right? So what they do is, they understand like how to psychologically manipulate or get attention. And one of the things they do is obviously they'll sell courses especially for men, men want status a lot of the time. So they have these, cars, driving around, parties, whatever it might be that people aspire. And that, relates to people who are insecure that obviously want to get out of that mess. And then what they do is they sell them a solution, which is a course. So when they're actually building their agency, they're great at marketing. But actually to build a business, as you guys know better than me, you have to be good at all the other functions of the business: operations, hiring, financials, like recruitment, all these other things. And I think when they get into it, a lot of the agency owners, they realize that it's a lot harder. So managing clients and building a business is really, really hard to do. And instead, when they get a few clients, what they see as a better option is to sell courses back to other agency owners. which is a high profit margin business. But the thing is that the lessons they're teaching, because let's say they got 3 clients and then they started selling courses to someone else, the information they then give back to other agency owners is terrible. It's so shallow, the advice. And the real reason they did it is because they took the easy route. And then it creates this cycle of where all the education, the information is not right. So people don't actually know how to go and build a business. And you've got all these people online that, gurus, so to speak, who are telling like how to build your marketing agency, how to build your online business, but they don't actually know how to do it. And then they're using these things on social media because they're good at marketing, like driving fast cars and hanging out with women, whatever it might be. I'm talking about a male audience here. And then it brings people into that. And they're like, oh, so that's how I have to do it. I have to be like that guy. But that guy never actually built like the agency that he's showing you that this is the bridge to that gap. He got rich by selling courses. So, and I didn't do that. Maybe I'm a fool. Maybe I should have done that.
That's I think is a debatable question. And there are people who consciously decide to get in, in my experience, there are founders who consciously decide to pursue a lifestyle path and they want to experience it. And all of that stems from insecurities and traumas and so, you at some point you have to experience a lifestyle to realize that is not something that you eventually want to pursue in life. And then perhaps the reflection point comes when you become unsatisfied with the goals that you have achieved and you start thinking about something deeper. But what you're saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, that that it's possible to shift the values, so to look deeper into your values,
Yeah.
to understand how to perhaps align what it is that you really want with the vehicle, with a business vehicle, with a business model that you're currently in.
Yeah. One thing I'm not so sure about is, can you get the lesson without going through the experience? And the reason why I say this is, when you listen to a lot of successful people, right? They say, yeah, I bought all the fast cars, I bought all like the mansions, did all the parties, and it gave me nothing. Like it was empty when I got there. And this is what I wanted, right? But still, everyone still wants it. So why is that? It makes me think that maybe you have to go through the experience yourself to realize the lesson. But is there a way in which someone who has already kind of gone through that experience or doesn't need to go that experience? I've always wondered, Romans, is there a way where you can just jump through that lesson and take the shortcut of the lesson to just be like, I don't want to buy those material things. I don't want that kind of lifestyle. I just want to build a really meaningful business. And I want to impact the world and leave it in a better place than I found it. Because really, through human evolution, like our ancestors, that's what they did. They fought world wars. They did incredible things, and they left the world in a better place than we found it. I mean, people complain about the world right now, but compared to 100 years ago, the standard of living is incredible. Like the access to resources we have, the opportunity, the internet, AI, everything. So really, it's our duty to try and leave the world, in my opinion, in a better way than we found it. And I think there's meaning in that. And I think if you don't pursue something that leaves impact in the world, in my opinion, you die soulless. And regardless of how much money you have, like that's the worst feeling in the world.
Then it becomes about how effective are you at marketing and promoting these set of beliefs and values?
Yeah.
Because essentially you're competing against the lifestyle gurus.
Exactly.
Right?
And then here's the issue, because everyone's like, oh, social media is the problem. Like it's messing up the generation. The algorithms of social media, they basically optimize to what humans want. So social media is a huge experiment in human psychology. If all of the, let's say, I don't know, talking about operations and finances and how to hire people, if that was the thing that humans want, that will be the thing that was at the top of everyone's newsfeed. So it's actually a reflection. It's a human condition because people want shortcuts. And that's why all of the lifestyle stuff goes to the top of the newsfeed and goes to the top of the algorithms. It's a reflection in human psychology. So how you break that, it's tough.
I had an interview with Calvin Hamilton, who sold his social media influencer marketing social media agency to Ryan Serhant. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah.
Who runs a real estate, New York-based real estate agency called Serhant. And we also spoke briefly about exactly the same, I would say, issue. And I remember when I noted one interesting thing about that is that if you sell to a particular audience, right now, we all try to appeal to a set of beliefs, a set of values. But the thing is that it's if you're not really clear on what values you are pursuing yourself or what values you're looking to develop, it's going to be quite hard to look into the market and understand what values you want to speak to, so you attract a particular audience. And Christina and I, when we speak about marketing or we speak about promotion, generally speaking, we clearly understand what type of values that we want to attract into, quote unquote, our community, into our business. And I think it makes the life easier. It makes everything that we do around marketing is easier because we're not trying to sophisticate anything. It is natural because it's an extension of who we are already. And I think this is where sort of the marketing, the agency space gets it wrong. You know, you try, obviously, because you're working with other clients, and especially in the e-com space, you become this sort of, or at least you need to have somebody in your agency to be the marketing mastermind, to be able to help clients, which, you know, in order to do that effectively, you gotta be really clear on sort of what kind of values and belief systems you're marketing to, and I think in the early stages of the agency journey, and just like you said, you know, a lot of people who are in their 20s, young people, they don't have that mindset, or they haven't developed the skill of clarifying what it is that they stand for, but also communicating that to the market. And I think it also very much ties back into how you help agencies, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, with the strategic storytelling or personal brands, and understanding how to sort of clarify what it is that you stand for yourself, and therefore try to attach it to the business, you know, make it different, because positioning, because a marketing agency is like a meta agency or Klaviyo agency, doesn't give you a lot of room for differentiation.
Yeah, people buy from people at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to ask you though, if you don't mind, before, if you have a specific set of values that you want to speak about, that you really care about, but then you put it out into social media, but the algorithms don't support that. So the people you want to get to, you can't get to them. But then you post something else, which is like, I don't know, lifestyle content, it gets loads of views. How do you stay focused and then still pursue that, even if it feels like you can't reach the people you want to reach to, and be your authentic self? Because I feel like that's the slippery slope, especially for agency owners, that they go down. You know, they try it one way and they're like, this is what I actually believe in, but it just doesn't work on social media because it's not quote unquote sexy. And then they just kind of pander to whatever the algorithms want and take that. So I think that's a really, like, how do you overcome that?
I believe it's down to a few variables. One of them is a skill of communication. Yes, if you post lifestyle content, you instantly tell the world what you stand for. Even if you don't stand for it, you want to promote that type of value. And I think we can also speak about different types of entrepreneurs, who, you know, whether it's ethical or not. But I think if you truly want to reach a particular audience, right, you need to study that audience and understand that audience better than they do themselves. Specifically their problems, their frustrations, their life. And a lot of that has to do with psychology, human behavior. You sort of become the psychoanalyst, you know, and you take a role of a psychoanalyst rather than a social media marketer, and you try to speak their mind.
Yeah.
If you do that effectively for a prolonged period of time, you will inevitably reach them. Now, there are other variables like the market size and whether the ICP or the audience that you're reaching out to has the financial means or the money to pay you.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. But if the question is whether you need to compromise on whom you ideally want to work with, that's usually a question of how committed are you to developing a skill and understanding your audience inside out, and becoming the mini psychotherapist.
And I think on a tactical level, then for people listening, I think the outcome, in my opinion, then from what you said, is don't focus on the followers. This is, everyone says this, don't focus on the followers, focus on the audience, but it's really hard to do. But because again, humans, like if you meet someone or someone speaks to you and they have 50,000 followers on LinkedIn or Instagram, whatever, they immediately go up in status, and it's people like shouldn't be like that. Yeah, but it is like that. Okay, so let's just be honest. Subconsciously, people attach meaning and value to that. But for you, if you don't find those right people, it's going to become a real issue. And I was listening, not to go too off track, but podcast of a guy called Eddie Hall. Have you heard of him? He's a world's strongest man guy from the UK, and he's really big on social media now. Like, got 3 million YouTube followers, and he's building all these brands and everything. And they asked him, they were like, how long did it take to start getting followers and stuff? And this guy, all he did for 10 years straight was pursue the world's strongest man, and he had no followers at all. And now in all of his videos, he can put like, the world's strongest man did X, Y, and Z. But that's the thing, like, he stuck to his values. He went out and achieved something incredible, but it was 15 years in the making. So I think it's the time horizon that you need to look on. But yeah, we go back to positioning you were asking me about. I think it's today's age, let's say for an agency, Facebook ads for e-commerce is not going to cut it. Like we said, the barrier to entry is too low, so it's too oversaturated for that. And I think the market has kind of broken down and become a lot more segmented. For example, 15 years ago, let's say a pet supplement brand, you couldn't really build an agency just around serving a pet supplement brand in e-commerce because there wasn't enough clients. But now you can, because there is enough clients, because the e-commerce market has expanded so fast. So for positioning, I think there's two ways to do it. You either niche down and focus on a certain type of clientele so you can speak to that specific audience, or the other way is you basically figure out what the outcome is that your audience wants, and then you give your solution. That's your positioning, how you uniquely solve that problem. And how do you figure that out? Well, you work with clients. You work with your clients, you track the results, you speak to them, you survey them, and they tell you what they want. I'll give you an example. So you guys obviously work with Eugenio. Shout out to him. He's an incredible entrepreneur. And when I started working with him, he was a Facebook ad agency and he was working in Spain. So he didn't really have strong positioning. So we started doing some brainstorming, asking his clients about what do they really appreciate about his agency. And we figured out that he was helping them expand into international markets. So then we followed up, we dug in, we did more research, and we figured out that for US companies, which is a big hot topic right now, they've kind of saturated the US market when they're big enough, and they want to go out and they're thinking about how can they expand into Europe. Then we got the data to back it up. So I don't want to get too technical, but for a US company, a brand, if they run the same ads in the US, translate them, run them into international markets like Spain, Italy, Germany, France, these same ads but translated, it can be up to 80% cheaper to acquire a customer. So what did we do with that information? We rebranded his agency positioning wise as an international expansion agency for US companies into Europe. And then guess what? Hey presto, he started getting way more leads. All of his cold emails had high response rates. His LinkedIn content, high response rates. Partnerships are easier because he has strong positioning and he stands out in a market. But he actually did it on market feedback by listening to his clients and talking to people. He didn't just, it's this whole thing of like dream things up in the shower. That's not how business works. It's all about market feedback. The people who get the most feedback in business, not just agencies, and then use that feedback and implement it, they're the ones who win.
I absolutely agree with it, and I love it. Is there a way to self-diagnose yourself as an agency and understand what is your unique offering? What is there a way to develop this hypothesis for yourself? Because obviously everyone's got different strengths and interests and so on and so forth.
Yes. So first of all, you got to figure out what is the outcome that because you said it before, what people need and what they want are two different things. And if you can't speak to what their wants are, you won't book calls, because positioning for an agency owner, really, if we break it down, it's how you can book more sales calls, right? So, it's it's the highest leverage thing you can do for an agency, because if your positioning just does, like, in terms of your content, books more sales calls, your outbounds, your partnerships, everything, it's the highest leverage thing. So how do you figure that out? What your, prospects in your market? First of all, you actually have to identify your ideal customer profile. So once you have to have some clients, ideally. If you're thinking, you're doing, I don't know, 2K a month and you've literally just started your agency and you're going to crack positioning in month 1, it's not going to happen. You actually have to work with some clients, figure out who you like working with, and then you have to figure out what is it about those clients. So thinking about things like how you communicate with them. What is the size of their company? What market do they operate in? Is it the founder that you speak to, or is it another decision maker in the business? And you need to map these things out, and that's what you call an ideal client profile. Then what you need to figure out is, for that ideal client profile, for example, when I was running my agency, it was supplements, CBD and skincare brands doing between 5 and 50 million in revenue. They work on Shopify. They spend at least 20,000 in ad spend. Most of them are in the American market, and we talk directly to the CEOs. So that's pretty specific. There's only about 8,000 of those people, by the way, in the market. So basically, what you then need to figure out once you have that ideal customer profile mapped out is what is their want, not what their need is. The need is something, the solution on the back end. So with the want, I'll give you an example. Working with a guy called Will right now, who has a CRO agency. Now, the problem was most people don't think about conversion rate optimization, because it's kind of like, sometimes with people think with agency operations and finances, it's not that sexy like marketing, but it's the thing that actually really gets the result. So he was trying to speak out into the market, conversion rate optimization, you need to do this, and no one was really listening. So then what we did is we figured out, what does the client want? The client wants to acquire more customers and scale their ads faster. So now we've got the outcome that they want. That's what they want. Now we need to branch that with the solution that he has uniquely, which is different to the marketplace. That's the positioning. So what we came up with, and this is like the new tagline on his website, the time of recording this podcast, is basically, you want to scale your ads faster. It's not your content or stop spending more money. It's your website. So now he's branching the dream outcome of what his prospects want for his ideal customer profile, and he's giving them his specific, unique solution. So it's almost polarizing, because no one else is talking about that. So you're like, this is dream outcome, this is how you get it. And people are like, oh, I didn't think about that before. So now he books more calls, and literally doing that, within 3 weeks, we booked more sales calls than he had in the last 1.5 years.
I feel like agencies who work with already established businesses, whether it's e-com or whatever, they slip into this comfort of thinking that, well, maybe even sort of maybe unconscious bias or whatever, they think that, if these businesses that I work with need ads and whatever content or whatever the mechanism that I'm selling to them, all I need to do is to apply that to myself, or maybe I don't have enough time to actually focus on my own marketing. But in reality, if you're not at 7-figure run rates yourself, you are I mean, essentially considered as a startup. You're still figuring out your own product market fit. And I think that an overwhelming majority of agencies don't even think of it as an essential step to building yourself up.
Yeah, 100%. So when I was at Alpha Inbound, because people are like, but what content do I post, Nigel? Like, and this is where the imposter syndrome comes in. Because when, you know, I'm working with clients and they're saying, you know, I want to post about content to attract my audience, they're like, I feel like a fraud because I don't have that many case studies yet. And I feel like I'm not an expert. Yeah, but the thing is that everyone starts there. You can't just accelerate to, I mean, you can wait for ages if you want, but why would you? Document the journey. So what do you post content about? When I was at Alpha Inbound, all of the things that we were testing with inside the agency, we basically reverse engineer and break down into step-by-step frameworks. So I basically built a roadmap for our agency, which was for our ideal client profile, which I've already told you about, 12 steps in a 6-month period to get them from A to Z, which was usually to get them to profitable advertising at a certain amount in ad spend. We had data to back this up. So it wasn't perfect, but I started posting about this process. Like, these are the 12 steps to get you from A to Z. And that's when I started getting loads of followers on LinkedIn and I started booking loads of sales calls. But what I will say is the first year I started posting on LinkedIn, 2022, I think I grew my account to 7,000 followers and hardly got any inbound revenue because I was testing stuff out and I was building. It takes time to build trust with people, right? You have to be consistent. If you don't know Robert Cialdini's book Influence, one of the things he speaks about is humans need consistency. So all of 2022, I posted every single weekday. I didn't really have anything to show for it, but I knew from speaking to people it was going to be worth plowing through because in the background, I was planting all these seeds. Then what happened in 2023, my account grew to 50,000 followers or 40-something thousand followers. We brought 600K of inbound revenue into the business. Here's what's amazing. When I jumped on calls with all the prospects who were booking inbound calls in 2023, they said that they'd been reading my content for 8 months back in 2022. So when I was posting content and I was thinking, oh, no one's watching this, no one's reading this, they were.
Yes.
The lurkers are in the comments. And if we take a platform like LinkedIn, for example, which should give people a lot more confidence, 90% of people don't ever engage. And only 1% of people post. So if you post, you are literally the 1%. And 90%, which by the way, is going to be most of your prospects, will never ever engage on your content. But when it says, 1,000, 10,000 impressions, they are real human beings that are reading that content on the other side. And this honestly was like one of the biggest breakthroughs for me because I had some posts where I had like 100,000 impressions, but I didn't have any sales calls. And I was kind of, it just felt, it didn't feel real. So it was almost like, what's the motivation to do it? But when I started going to like e-com events, I'd walk in and everyone would know who I am. And the positioning and authority it then gave me, because I was obviously talking positioning wise, like everyone not only knew who I am, but they knew what I did. So people would come up to me and be like, oh, congratulations on that testimonial, Nigel. Oh, congratulations on scaling your agency. Oh, by the way. And you know what was really interesting? I was talking to a guy who was the director of partnerships at Gorgeous. Honestly, this Romans blew my mind. And I was speaking to him and he was talking about, loads of people reading your content. He was like, actually, I saw the other day, someone in our business, like Gorgeous, a huge SaaS company, had printed out your LinkedIn post and they had it on their desk and they were implementing the steps. And I was just like, I just couldn't believe it. It was unbelievable. But I think that's the thing for people. It's like people are reading your content, but you're planting seeds. And I think it's plant seeds, cultivate, harvest. But that process can take years, but you have to get started now.
What do founders need to realize that this is a compound effect? That it's not as, because we also, Christina and I will speak with agency owners about marketing, generally speaking.
Sure.
Actually, yesterday we went to sauna, and at the end, Christina, I went to changing room, and Christina stayed in an infrared sauna, and she met someone who is running Google Ads for businesses, and he's just about to sort of start building his agency. And eventually she introduced me to the person, and he asked me, like, Roman, so how did you build your marketing agency? I said, well, like, I primarily use LinkedIn. He's like, yeah, I've been thinking about this for such a long time. Everyone tells me to do LinkedIn. And I'm like, so why haven't you started yet? Well, there's always that narrative, or an excuse that it's maybe not enough time, maybe something. But what do you think agencies need to realize that it's not something complementary to your marketing mix? It's an essential. Like, if you don't do this, nothing else is going to happen.
Okay, I've thought about this a lot. Yeah. So when I speak to agency owners and I tell them the personal brand is the best thing they can do, they say to me, I'm not posting content yet. And I ask them why. And then they say, I'm too busy, Nigel. Okay, so I ask them, what are the things that you're busy doing? Okay, I'm making sales calls. I am trying to recruit people for my agency. I might be trying to find investors. I'm trying to build partnerships. Okay. Once you have a personal brand, all 4 of those things and many other things all get solved. You'll have more sales calls booked, inbound, people coming to you. The best talent in the industry, when I was at Alpha Inbound, we had people who could work at Fortune 500 companies wanting to work for us. The best talent comes to you. Investors, they will come to you and potentially give you money. Partners of big tech companies and other agencies that have access to your ideal clients will come to you. You'll get invited to come on amazing podcasts like with Romans and all other things that will compound. So it's interesting because the reason why they're not posting content is because they're busy doing all these things. But if they built the personal brand, it would solve all of these things. So they'll get all of that time back. So it's such a weird feedback loop. But here's the problem. To actually build the personal brand and the time it takes for it to solve all of those, 4 or 5 things that I mentioned can be like 2 years. So the only way to get around it, and this is what I did in February 2022, and I'll just share a quick story of why I actually started my personal brand. So I was listening to a podcast with this huge entrepreneur who had millions of followers, right? And he was talking about an investment pitch that he did. And he went to the investment pitch to pitch these investors, 10 investors it was, on his product. Before the meeting started, 7 out of those 10 investors asked to have a photo with him. So I realized in that moment, he wasn't pitching investors. He was pitching his fans. And imagine the level of authority and positioning you and strength you have in that negotiation if your reputation gets to the room before you do. And it was at that moment, Romans, that I said to myself, because I was the guy who was too busy to post content. Because I was doing all the things like sales calls, hiring, whatever else, so busy in operations. I said to myself, no matter how busy I am, I block out 1 hour a day in my calendar to do this content thing. It was actually 2 hours, I think, every single day, blocked it out. And I said to my team, this is my time. And I am having this time to myself. And I said to them, trust me when I tell you. And they didn't believe me. This is going to reap the rewards in years to come. And it did. That was our biggest differentiator at Alpha Inbound. The reason we could scale from 0 to 140K a month in 18 or so months was because I built the personal brand on LinkedIn. That was the biggest differentiator because it gave us the opportunity. Sure, we had to do things those opportunities. Like just because you have people come to want to work with you, you have to be able to have a recruiting process and all the rest of it. But it gave me the chance, it gave me the foot in the door with all of these opportunities. And that was the single most important thing that I did to build my agency. And that's the reason I get, like I said, opportunities to speak to great people like you.
You need an epiphany about a personal brand. I think that's fundamental. If you don't make that switch,
and no one's going to do it for you.
No one's going to do it for you, and no one's going to help you in a way that it's. I think it may feel overwhelming at the very beginning because you see all of these personal brands out there who already have great content, so on and so forth. But you can start. You can literally start with posting on LinkedIn. posting about
Sure.
what you've learned so far, the use cases and everything else.
Yeah.
And I think some of that also ties to self-belief, self-confidence, the mindset. And I think you are also, you talk quite a bit about the importance of that.
Mm-hmm.
And we had several conversations when you explained to me, Roman, when I get into the engagements with the clients, it feels like what they're trying to achieve, what they're trying to do with their marketing and sales efforts is less about revenue, but it's more about the mindset work.
Mm-hmm.
It's until they meet you and until they sit down with you and go deeper into that prospect, they realize, they don't realize the importance of that work.
Yeah, it's all about self-belief. So the biggest thing, and I didn't know, by the way, when I was starting to work with agencies at the start of 2024, I didn't know. I thought it was going to be like, I'll give them this sales deck that's closing 2.5 million revenue, and I'm teaching the tactics, like that's just going to make them the sales, that's going to grow their agency. The problem was I wasn't on those sales calls with them. So then they started doubting themselves. And, sales is a transfer of conviction and enthusiasm. So they didn't make the sales, right? So the biggest thing that actually helped all these agencies was raising their prices. It wasn't getting more leads, because the only way to grow an agency, well, I say the only way really to grow an agency is you have to make more cash. And the only two ways you can make more cash is 1, decrease your costs, 2, increase your prices. But with agencies, because of the elasticity of pricing, for example, in consumer products, of a loaf of bread, if everyone prices it at £2 and someone prices it at £10, no one's going to pay £10 for a loaf of bread, right? Unless it's, something pretty extraordinary. But in B2B services for agencies, some people will charge 2,000, someone can charge 10,000, because the elasticity in pricing is much greater. So the way you do that is you show value. But here's the thing. What's behind raising the prices is the self-belief thing. And that's where you actually have to believe in your service that it's worth the increase in price. Because when I started asking the agency owners, why do you price your service at this price? You know what the answers that came back? The competitors, that's what they price it at. Or when I was on a sales call, that's what they said it would be worth it. And I tried this price and, the prospect didn't do it. Well, that's the problem. And the thing is you don't believe in your service or product. So how do you believe? I mean, I'll talk specifically for prices and we can go maybe into more wider self-belief. But specifically for pricing, I'll give you one example. I had this agency guy who was working with 20 clients. He was charging him $500 a month for his services, a Google Ads agency. We got one of his clients up and I was like, do you know how much money you make them? Because by the way, he came to me and said, the only way to grow my agency, Nigel, I need more leads. So I knew it was raising his prices. So I said, for this specific client here, do you know how much money you've made? And he was like, no. So we went in and we tracked it all. Over the course of 6 months, he'd made them $1 million extra in revenue. And he was charging $500 a month for that. I was like, this is the problem. And when I actually took him through that process, he actually got angry. He was like, holy shit. Like, I have been massively undercharging for the value that I deliver. And that was when I saw it on a call, because I specifically took him through that process. Why? Because I wanted it to click in his brain and I could see it. And that was when I knew now he believes in the value of his service. So if you don't know how to raise your prices, the best way to do it is to track the amount of value, which often is revenue, that you bring for your clients and price against that value. So if you can make them an extra $50,000 a month, you can charge $5,000 for that as a good return on investment. Doesn't matter what your competitors are doing. Figure out how to bring your clients more value and then charge and increase your prices at that. And the way you get the self-belief working is you look at the numbers you're bringing your clients. But if you don't focus on, service delivery and have a good service, you can obviously never do that. But yeah, on a wider perspective,
I was just going to ask you, what if it's not to do with justifying it to yourself and selling it to yourself, but more about, I don't know, fear of not coming across a certain way or fear of charging more? So yeah, if we speak a little bit about the wider perspective of the mindset, pricing is one thing. Sometimes you all you need to do is to sit down and justify to yourself why you need to raise prices. But I think it's also sometimes it's also about holding yourself back on a belief level, and people are afraid of standing out. They're afraid of charging more, and it has less to do with justification and more to do with how they feel about themselves. And self-esteem.
100%. I mean, my favorite quote, as I told you before, is from Winston Churchill, and it's one man, or I should say woman as well, who has conviction will overwhelm 100 people who have only opinions. Conviction is basically self-belief. So if you believe in yourself, then you can go and start posting LinkedIn content. You can go and raise your prices. You can go and hire that team member that everyone wants to hire. You can go and approach those bigger brands. You can go to events. You can get on stage. Every single thing comes down to belief. But how do you build that conviction? Well, the only way I know how to do it is by throwing yourself in the deep end. And you either sink or swim. But often, a lot of the times, you will swim if you're forced to do it. You got to think, like, through history, our ancestors, what they've been through, the sheer moments of adversity is worlds apart from, we're pretty comfortable today. Humans are capable of ridiculous feats, and every single person that's listening to this podcast, I believe, is capable of more than they're doing. How to do it, I've got this thing which is constraint drives innovation. So I don't know if you've ever been in a place where your back's up against the wall, and I'll just give a very
multiple times.
A very extreme example to show people what's possible. So imagine someone that you dearly love, and again, this is going to be a little bit extreme. Imagine someone you really love, someone puts a gun to their head and says, and let's just pretend you're broke and you don't have any experience or skill sets. And they say, I'm going to pull that trigger if you don't get me $10,000 within the next week. Do you think that you can get that $10,000? The answer is, of course, yes. What does that mean? It means you're capable of getting that $10,000. So most people never put themselves, I mean, I don't recommend putting a gun to your head, but the thing is most people don't put themselves in that constraint. And that's what drives innovation. When your back's up against the wall, you figure out your brain, you basically put so much pressure on it that it basically works in a different dimension, and it comes up with these really innovative solutions. If you think about all the startups that have made it massive, there's always a point where the back was up against the wall and suddenly out of nowhere, this great innovation came. And it's because constraint drives innovation. And that's why I love entrepreneurship, because that's how we can leave the world in a better place than we found it.
And I think this is what you're doing extremely well. And maybe this is your natural ability. Maybe it's been developed on the back of all of the challenges that you had to go through, and maybe insecurities. But how does one manufacture that state of mind? Because I think a lot of people also feel like they're made out of glass, and if they put extra pressure on themselves, they'll collapse.
Well,
but it's...
Yeah, I mean, you say it's natural to you. I don't know if it is, because I waited until 27 years old, and because I got bullied at school and ostracized, I was so insecure, and all I did was please other people, especially my parents. So another reason, apart from having the master plan of going to Saudi or wherever and getting a big salary, was because my mum and dad wanted me to go to university and get a stable job, because they're not entrepreneurs, so they don't understand taking risks. And when I was 27 years old, which if you're not 27, don't wait that long, quitting that job was, it sounds easy, just hand in your notice. It was so hard. I had sleepless nights for months on end. And it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. But after that, I mean, if I knew the hell I'd have to go through to get to where I am today, I don't know if I would have taken the leap of faith. But this is the analogy I'll give. If you watch the Batman movies with Christian Bale, do you remember in the third one when he is in the prison and he has to escape? He's in the bottom of the prison, he's looking up into the sky, and the only way to get out of that prison is he has to climb to the top and jump across. Remember?
Yes.
So at the start, he starts climbing up the wall and he straps this rope round him. Yeah. And this rope for entrepreneurs signifies comfort. The only way, when he keeps failing, he keeps going up with this rope and he keeps falling down. And he gets down, one of the prisoners says to him, jump without the rope and let the fear of death drive you forward to the other side. And he gets up and everyone's cheering and he jumps without the rope. And he takes that leap of faith and he gets to the other side and he goes back and obviously, saves his city. That leap of faith is something that every entrepreneur has to go to, and you can't have the rope. So not having the rope, what that signifies is uncertainty. And that is the hardest thing for entrepreneurs. You do not have, no one's going to come to you and say with a contract here, you're definitely going to get to the other side. So how do you get to the other side? You take the leap of faith, first of all. You have to take the leap of faith. The only way to get is that you believe you will figure it out along the way. And I promise you, whatever you're thinking is so insurmountable to get to the other side, I promise you, if you work really hard, if you hang around with the right people who've already been there and done what you want to do, and you don't give up, I promise you can get to the other side. And the reason I know that is I didn't think I could for 27 years of my life. And then I took that leap of faith, quitting my job, and extraordinary things have happened. So take the leap of faith and use self-belief that you'll figure it out along the way.
You're not getting paid for the time and even for the value, you're getting paid for the risks that you can bear. As you take your first leap of faith into entrepreneurship, building an agency or any other business, you then put yourself in a very interesting spot in life where you need to continue taking leaps of faith. Yeah. Maybe more measured. And like how Christina likes to put it, she's the risk mitigator in our business.
That's good to have those people in your life.
Yeah, it's that when you start analyzing risk and learning how to how to protect your downside.
Sure.
Yeah, but the first one typically happens. It happens here rather than here.
This is why the advice that comes from really successful entrepreneurs is don't put all your eggs in one basket, diversify risk. They've already made it. They've taken the risks. So now they're trying to mitigate. And by the way, that's a great strategy. But if you're earlier on the journey, I only had one egg in one basket. I didn't have options. So I had to take a lot of risk. And at the start, usually you have to take more risk. But again, you have to, here's the main thing with the self-belief thing. If you quit your job because someone else tells you to quit your job, that is an awful decision. You have to fundamentally believe it's the right thing to do. For me, I had to wait until I was 27 to build up that courage. Now, ideally, by sharing my story, I can get people to start earlier and believe in themselves sooner. That's my whole principle and mission in life. But you take as long as you need to do. But what I would say is this. What is the alternative? The alternative is sitting on that decision and not taking the leap of faith, whatever pressure it might be for your agency or whatever you want to do in life, is getting to the end of your life, think about your last breath before you die, and now thinking about you're looking back at your life and thinking, what if? What if I took that leap of faith like Batman did? And now you can't do anything. And for me, that creating that reality in my mind has always pushed me to take risks, because I never want to get to the end of my life and think, shit, I could have taken a leap of faith. I could have done amazing things, but now I've got nothing left. I'm old and frail and I can't do anything. And I think, and I've seen, by the way, people that have done that. And it's the saddest thing, because as Steve Jobs said, it's the people who think they're crazy enough to change the world are the ones who do. But what he didn't say is the best ideas and innovations are left in graveyards all over our lands. Why? Because people didn't have the self-belief to take a chance and take that leap of faith. And if I can get a few more people in this world to take that leap of faith, bet on themselves and believe in themselves, then I'll die a happy man.
I think this is a powerful ending. Now, Christina and I have had the pleasure of being invited to Nigel's retreat that happens in Dominican Republic in the end of March. And obviously we'll be covering the operation systems and building high-performance teams topic. But Nigel, can you talk a little bit about the retreat itself and why you decided to put it together?
Yeah, for sure. So again, putting it back to self-belief, firstly, you got to take that leap of faith. But secondly, when you've taken that leap of faith and you go through adversity, you need to surround yourself with other people. And, you know, without going off on too much of a tangent here, because I know we're trying to wrap up, Harvard did this study on human happiness over 85 years, and they found the only thing that you need for all your health markers, relationships, money, whatever it might be, is a few deep, meaningful relationships. The problem, especially of agency owners, is that in this world today, even though we've got these incredible opportunities with the internet and building businesses online, so many people are sat at home lonely. And I know that because I was that person. And I needed that connection. I still do. And I know a lot of the agency owners that I work with, they need that connection. They need to be around other people. When I've done some of these meetups before, you guys will know this. And I see, like, I've had guys that come up to me and they say, Nigel, I just want to let you know, I really needed this, man. I really, really needed this. Like, and it was coming from a deep place. And that was quite emotional, actually, because it brought me back to where I was when I literally had no one and I was suffering in the dark. And I want to give the opportunity to bring a group of incredible entrepreneurs together and have an incredible experience. This isn't just an event. You know, this is an experience of 3 days in the Dominican Republic. We've got some incredible guest speakers, obviously yourself and Christina. I'm honoured. We've got Timothy Armu, who built and sold his agency Fanbytes at 27 for a multi-8-figure exit. And we've got Joe Gannon, who's a personal branding expert behind Ali Abdul, Jordan Peterson and Sahil Bloom. And then we're going to have 30 leading marketing agencies in the Dominican Republic. Everyone's going to get, you know, private beach villas, and we're going to go scuba diving, doing activities, because that's what brings the best out of people. And I know if people are pushing and want to do big things, if I can get them around these successful people, I know that event can be a springboard to get them to do what they think is impossible. So that's the reason why the 28th to 29th of March, we're going to be landing there. And hopefully if anyone's listening to this, they'd be interested to join us.
I believe this can be life-changing and a must attend. We are personally looking forward to it. Super excited. We've never been to this part of the world. And yeah, it's amazing. Thank you very much, Nigel. It's been a real pleasure. And I've personally learned quite a bit today from our conversation as well.
Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure, Romans. Let this be the first of many.
Let's do this.